Many of us watch Florida games and yell at the Gators when they have the ball, especially in the second half. But why is that? Napier is known for his antiquated but efficient offensive approach. We sure can run the ball well, but we're missing many of the gaudy pass plays that Gator fans love. We were spoiled by some really good offensive geniuses, and we want more. So let's take a deep dive into the Napier system and the play calling duties that Napier refuses to give up. Are all the calls for a legitimate offensive coordinator to be hired overblown? Or is there actual merit behind all of the offensive frustrations? And before we begin, yes, Rob Sale is technically our offensive coordinator, but the offensive scheme and the play calling are controlled by Napier himself. At the end of the day, does Napier need a play calling offensive coordinator who can bring in their own passing game concepts? Our team at A Peek Inside the Gators sat down with Justin Manning. He is the defensive coach for Oak Hall School in Gainesville, Florida, to break down Billy Napier's offense. So let's talk about it. Okay, so Napier's offense relies heavily on shallow and intermediate routes. We have no long ball that we have seen yet this season. An accurate quarterback is necessary to run this offense effectively, efficiently. Anthony Richardson, while talented, was much better suited for a Mullen-esque scheme, which flourishes with a dual threat, rocket-armed quarterback. And we all know that that is exactly what Anthony Richardson was and is. Our offense is running more smoothly this year due to having a deadly accurate quarterback in Graham Mertz, who is capable of methodically carving up a defense over the middle and in the flats. So our offense is actually better with a quarterback that would be less highly touted than Anthony Richardson. Now, Napier tends to employ a 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, 1 running back. This is a fairly outdated setup that has seen a slight resurgence by a team that has very talented tight end rooms. Think the Chiefs or Georgia. It has a 60-40 run-pass ratio. So by efficiently and effectively running the ball, Napier does not need to ask Mertz to be anything more than a game manager. Our quarterback is not going to be asked to put the team on his back. The entire theme of this offense is ball control. And that protects the defense, right? Ball control offense to protect the defense. So let's talk a little bit about our scheme. Our offensive line will often utilize tight splits instead of wide splits. Tight splits are when the offensive linemen are lined up very closely, allowing for better run blocking. With the rise of the spread and air raid offenses, most modern offenses utilize wide splits. So the offensive linemen are spaced further apart. This is to emphasize pass protection. Napier also calls many condensed formations. There is a lot of, let's call it pre-snap eye candy to help diagnose coverage. You see all of that movement before the ball stopped every single play, it feels like. By putting a receiver or sometimes a running back into motion before the ball is snapped, a quarterback can diagnose if a team is playing man or zone defense. If a defender follows the wide receiver, that means the defense is playing man. Heavy pre-snap motions can eat up the clock, compounding the effect of Napier's low-speed offense. However, many of the NFL's top offenses, like the Dolphins, the Chiefs, the 49ers, utilize heavy pre-snap motion. Napier will complement the downhill running attack with play action off the run game. By forcing defenses to respect our formidable run game, play action, or fake handoffs, can fake out linebackers and open up receivers over the middle. So what should you look for when watching Florida games? Many times, Napier will only use 2-man route combos out of max protection. This has prevented Mertz from taking too many hits. The trade-off, though, is that only 2 receivers are available to throw to downhill. There is a strong tendency to run and throw to the right, which is where Mertz is the most comfortable. Mertz has strong stats when rolling out, actually really similar to Baker Mayfield's play style. Many viewers have already noticed our red zone struggles when the field condenses. You'd have to be blind to not see the struggles last week. Napier tends to get too fancy in the red zone, with many slow developing and trick plays that backfire. Thank God we at least have a kicker now. Smack is got to be the best name for a kicker in college football. Super, super excited he's the starter now because there's so much we can do with that. Napier utilizes heavy orbit motion and jet motion to get athletes in space for short gains. Orbit motion is a primarily pre-snap motion where a skill player moves from one side of the formation to the other and goes behind the quarterback. Jet motion is a pre-snap motion where a skill player moves from one side of the formation to the other, but he goes in front of the quarterback. By running these motions, the defense can be shaken up if they don't communicate with each other. Not many offenses employ this slow developing of the pre-snap motion as often as we do anymore, although it's still prevalent. So, what are the pros of Napier's offense? Napier's offense makes it easy to diagnose coverage due to the amount of pre-snap motions. Okay, we just talked about that. Our pace offense is great at controlling game momentum. We go out there, we eat the clock. We're routinely having 5 to 8 minute drives. Mainly due to our slow developing plays, our run game, and our stout defense, we are controlling the game momentum. Napier likes to spread the ball around to different playmakers to keep the defense guessing. With Pearsall, and then, of course, we have a strong trio of freshman wide receivers. We have tight ends and running backs that are capable of catching the ball. There are many diverse pass catchers for Mertz to choose from. And above all else, Napier's run design concepts are cutting edge. Napier calls strong counterplays that'll isolate interior defenders and force them to flow into the opposite direction of the running back. Additionally, Napier will call plays based on the strengths of the running back on the field. We obviously have a very strong duo of running backs. Montrell Johnson is a prototypical between the tackles, we call him a power back, who can bulldoze defenders up the middle. Johnson's runs really do tend to be right up the gut. ETN is more of a classic shifty perimeter back who can make defenders miss in open space. His runs tend to be around the edge. So what are the cons of Napier's offense? Napier's system does not make defenses defend the whole width of the field. This can be traced back to Napier's very compact formations. Napier has as many non-imaginative passing concepts that can be easily predicted by the opposing defense. And Napier has trouble breaking tendencies in his play calling. He will get stuck calling repeat plays, even if they don't work. We may struggle to come back from a deficit due to our low-speed offense. We really have no hurry-up offense that we've seen, no hot routes. Our tempo is not upbeat. We also have predictable play calling. An example would be running into a stacked box. Third quarter offense has been terrible, and it doesn't seem like Napier is making adjustments at the half. So what do we do about that? Do we need a play calling offensive coordinator? And while Napier's offensive system has shown itself to be decent, right? We are winning ball games. There are many glaring flaws. So that leads to questions. Why are the fans calling for an offensive coordinator? Well, Napier's red zone efficiency is near the bottom of the nation. While we may be able to out field goal kick other teams now, which this is a new development, Napier's offense has shown a tendency to just sputter within the 20-yard line. Our red zone has just been abysmal. There's a lack of flow with the play calling, and we aren't taking what the defense gives us. We also have trouble adjusting after scripted drives. This is something we talked about in a previous video. Napier is really successful with his scripted drives. It's after that Florida starts to struggle. Our offense is very obviously dominant in the first half. And that's when the stuff is scripted. And when Napier has to call plays on the fly, like many offensive coordinators do throughout a game, the offense loses its wheels. We need a more modern passing attack with a more advanced route combos. While our passing game may have thrived, 15, 20 years ago, Napier has in no way caught up to the spread offense that has taken over modern football. We have a quarterback and pass catchers capable of running a high-octane offense, but Napier's offense does not contain the speed to keep up with other modern, high-scoring offenses. Finally, our offense needs to play with fire and passion, just like the defense has discovered. Like we previously stated, we have guys to run a powerful offense that focuses on more than just controlling the game momentum. With no tempo, no hurry-up offense, no hot routes, our offense tends to take its time getting down the field. High-flying offenses aren't just fun to watch. They're feasible when your defense is number 5 in the nation. At the end of the day, Napier is operating as our head coach, our program GM, our offensive coordinator, and our quarterbacks coach, all while recruiting at an elite level. The offense could be a result of him being spread too thin, making the need for a true offensive coordinator even greater. The most elite head coaches in the country, while obviously being well-versed at one side of the ball or the other, tend to let their coordinators call plays. Think of Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, for example. They are elite defensive coordinators in their own right, but they don't call their defense. So who are some realistic options that we could look at? Most likely, an offensive coordinator whose background lies in the passing game is probably the best bet here. At the end of the day, Napier can operate an elite run game, and he's doing that, but a subpar passing game with, at best, suspect play calling after the scripted offense is over. Take a guy like Jeff Scott, who called the Clemson offense during the Trevor Lawrence years. His strong passing game concepts and knack for play calling integrated into Napier's offensive philosophies and run designs would lead to one of the most potent scoring offenses in the nation. Most likely, in Napier's style, we will pull a young, up-and-coming play-calling offensive coordinator from the G5 or a lower Power 5 level to modernize our offense to its max capacity. Keep an eye on names like Colin Klein at Kansas State, Willie Korn at Liberty, or even Russ Callaway, our current tight ends coach, for names that Billy might look to for our next offensive coordinator. This video was much different than what we normally do. We don't always get so in the weeds and granular, but we thought this was really important to do, and we hope that you have learned something from it today. We have a video coming out soon on Graham Mertz, and we'll also be previewing the Kentucky game Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so make sure you join us for that. I appreciate all your love and support, and go Gators!